All right, we're beginning World War One, Chapter 7. At this point, the war is actually going to be called the Great War because we do not know that we're going to have a second war, so we do not have World War One at the time. But now of course, we do. This cartoon, political cartoon, is made by Wallace Robinson in 1915. We don't go into the war until 1917. So again, we need to look at Europe and what's going on at Europe to kind of understand how we get there. But this cartoon has your white pit bull, your American pit bull terrier, with the United States flag wrapped around its neck, letting you know that, hey, we're neutral because we're isolationists at this time, right? Remembering that we'll handle the Western Hemisphere, keep us out of your Eastern Hemisphere. We don't want to deal with anything going on at Europe. We don't want Europe coming into our business. So that's why it lets them know I'm neutral, but I'm not afraid of any of you. And we remain neutral until we enter the war in 1917. But let's look at what's going on at Europe. As I was telling you before, imperialism is going to lead us into a world war. So the years leading up to World War I, Europe became this tense and competitive landscape. It's shaped by what we call Main, M-A-I-N, and these are the major forces that are going on at the same time, and what we historians have decided are the cause of the war. At the beginning, the M is for militarism. This is nations that are using the new industrial technology. They're rapidly building up their armies. We talked last chapter about us building up our navy and creating battleships. So all these countries are building up strong armies and navies, and they want to prove that they're strong and they're ready for conflict. They don't want anybody messing with them. The other thing we have are alliances. These are secret alliance systems. And what it basically is making a pact, a secret pact with a buddy. If you go to battle, I will go to battle behind you. And this alliance system is going to set into effect like this domino effect of everybody backing up their alliances and going to war. So these are agreements that promise mutual defense, meaning if there's a conflict, we will stand behind you. So our current alliance system now is NATO in 2026. Those are the countries we have an alliance with. The second letter is I, which is for imperialism, which we talked about. If you remember the Berlin Conference, all of the European countries are fighting for the power of new colonies, new resources. They want that sphere of influence, that global influence, and they are all fighting among themselves for different countries, and they basically take over all of Africa. The final thing is nationalism. This is a radical form of pride, okay? That you want to be proud of your country, you want to have national pride. But nationalism in this sense is not only is my country the best, not only do I have strong loyalty to my country, but I should be in charge of all the other countries too, because I am the best. So it's really this radicalization of wanting to be your own country, wanting not to have other countries dominate over you, and wanting to be the top dog. So the combination of militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism, this is what leads the European countries to go to war. All right, so we've got to understand how we got there, and this is going to involve the Balkans. And I wish I had a map here, because the actual country that starts the war, Serbia, and also what they're fighting over, Bosnia, which is tiny, they start everything off and then they like literally disappear from the whole story. Okay, but let's go back to the beginning. So in the 1900s, you have the Balkan area. You have Austria-Hungary, which is in control of Bosnia. In 1908, Bosnia is this very small area, but very, very important to the Slavic people. So Serbia is free. Serbia is independent. It's a Slavic nation. And the Serbs, they want Bosnia. Bosnia is full of fellow Slavic people, just like them. Bosnia has a lot of heritage and a lot of religious ties for the Serbs. So they want Austria-Hungary to release control of Bosnia and let Bosnia be part of Serbia and other Slavic states so they can create and unite and have one Slavic state. Austria-Hungary, however, has no intention of giving up its new territory. Okay? So in 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he is in the picture with the family in the right. You have Ferdinand, you have Sophia, his wife, who is going to be pregnant at the time of the assassination, and then you have the children. Now, Archduke is in line for the Austria-Hungarian throne, but he's going to travel to Sarajevo, Bosnia, as a diplomatic visit. Okay, he knows that Serbia is upset. He knows that they want Bosnia, so he's going to go down there without, since it's diplomatic, he's only taken like secretaries and aides. He has not taken any military protection. And he's going to go down, he's going to parade himself around Bosnia and let them know, hey, we care about you, we like you, but we're not going to let you go. We're still going to control you. All right, so that's his little mission that he's going to go do. Then you have a nationalist group called the Black Hand, and they are a secret Serbian group. And what they're going to do is they're going to kill the Archduke. It's going to do a chain reaction, and their hope is just very simple. Austria attacks Serbia, Russia, who is Serbia's ally, so Russia and Serbia have an alliance. Russia then will step in and protect Serbia. And because of this, Austria-Hungary won't want to go to war, and they'll let Bosnia go. So the Black Hand, it's a crazy assassination attempt. The Archduke is going to follow this parade route. Okay? And the Black Hand is going to have 6 assassins all lined up on this parade route. There are several issues going on at the time. The parade route is going to go along a river that was out of drought. The Archduke is in a car that they are going to take, because it's June and it's hot, they're going to take the roof and, fold it down. And then you also only have, secretary and aides going with him, but nobody protecting him. So the assassins are 6 of them. They're all lined up along the route. So the assassination attempts begin. The first assassin, as the Archduke goes by, he freezes and he doesn't do anything. So all these good assassins, they're going to take cyanide, because that's what you do if you're an assassin. You take cyanide so nobody can question you and you can protect your, secret sources. So they take cyanide. Well, the batch of cyanide that all of them have is bad. So the cyanide, which is supposed to kill them, doesn't work. So they go down to the river to try and drown themselves, but the river's too low. So basically, they're on the side of the river, throwing up and wet. So that's the first assassin. The second assassin throws a grenade. It bounces off the Archduke's car and explodes under the one behind them. So that assassin, he swallows his pill. It doesn't work. He jumps into the river. It's too shallow. He's sick on the side of the road. And both of those guys get arrested. So you had a few other mistakes, but the other assassins, and this is where we're going to get to Princip. He's the one that you see in the picture to the left. All of these other assassins, the Archduke's still coming down the road. He's coming down his little parade route. He's going to stop and make a speech, and then he's going to head back. I'm not making this up. All right, so Princip, and this is how I would be if I was an assassin. I see the Archduke coming. I'm like assassin number 6. All the other ones have failed. I'm done with this. I'm hungry. I'm going to go get something to eat. That's what Princip does. He literally says, the heck with this. I'm going to go to a cafe. I'm going to get something to eat and drink. So that's what Princip goes and does. So he's in there eating and drinking and doing his stuff. The Archduke continues his route, continues his visit, and then he decides, instead of, after he makes his speech on this platform, he's supposed to go one way, but he's like, you know what, let's go visit our group that's in the hospital from the bomb exploded. So he's going, and his driver makes a turn, a right turn, thinking that he's going a different way, and he's, just turned, just barely turned right, and he's putting his car into reverse to, back up and go back down the road to visit the people in the hospital. At this time that the driver has made that right and is trying to get his car back into reverse, Princip comes out of the cafe. He's coming out of the cafe, and there's the Archduke right in front of him. And so he shoots the Archduke. He actually shoots Sophia first. And the Archduke is, Sophia, my love, please don't. But he gets shot before he can finish that sentence. So they kill the Archduke and Sophia, his wife. And so Princip is captured right then and there. It's a very interesting story. You could argue, did World War I begin from a hamburger or a wrong turn? Who knows? But at that instant, everything's going to change. Okay, so you have what's called, I don't know if you can hear my dog snoring, but she is snoring quite loudly. Okay, so this is where we're going to have this domino effect of alliances, and it's going to go super quick. So Austria-Hungary is going to declare war on Serbia because Serbia had the Black Hand, and they are the ones that assassinated the Archduke. Oh, by the way, Princip is considered a hero in this territory and a martyr because he killed the Archduke for the betterment of his country. He's actually going to die in prison. He's going to get sick and die. Okay, back to the domino effect. So Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Serbia is backed by Russia. Russia mobilizes to defend Serbia. Mobilization is considered an act of war. Germany warns Russia to stop because Germany backs Austria-Hungary. They don't. They declare war on Russia. Germany launches what's called the Shifting Plan, which is attacked through France and Belgium. Britain declares war on Germany for violating Belgium's neutrality because they go through Belgium. And August of 1914, we have Europe split into two massive camps. You have the Allies, Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy later on, and eventually the United States. You have the Central Powers, which are Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. You're going to have Italy switch sides during the war, and then Russia is going to have a revolution in their country, and they're going to change during the war to the USSR, and they are going to withdraw from the war. Okay, here again, okay, good, a map. Do you see how small Serbia is? Find Serbia and look how small it is. And they're against Austria-Hungary. But then look how big what's being called right now the Russian Federation, but will be the USSR. Look how big that territory is. So once we get going here in a minute, you're not going to hear about Serbia again. They're gone. Okay, so again, chain reaction. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia for killing the Archduke. As soon as Austria attacks, Russia steps in to support Serbia. They begin to mobilize. Germany warns them to stop mobilizing, which is, like I said, an act of war. Russia refuses. Germany declares war on Russia. Knowing it now faces what's called a two-front war, so it's going to have to fight two different countries at one time. It's going to have Russia in the east and France in the west. Germany activates what they call the Shiften Plan. They think it's a strategy that's going to quickly defeat France before turning east to fight Russia. So anyways, to reach France, Germany has to go through neutral Belgium. This is a violation. So Belgium's supposed to be neutral. Don't involve us in the war. Don't come near us. You cannot go through our country. This is an international agreement. So as soon as Germany invades Belgium, it's going to happen again in World War II with Poland, but as soon as Germany invades Belgium, it violates the international agreement, and Great Britain is then going to declare war on Germany for violating Belgium's neutrality. So this pulls all of these countries into conflict very, very quickly. And it's all because of that alliance system. All right, so World War I, we have the Industrial Revolution, we have new weapons. So World War I is going to be extremely different with all the technologies and all the changes in warfare. And this is going to cause casualties and injuries unlike anything that we'd ever seen at this time. And we're going to have new medical procedures. You're going to have prosthetics come into play. But let's look at the different machines that they have, war destructive machines. You have the machine gun. The machine gun is going to be powerful, and it can fire 500 rounds per minute. It's going to be considered the most deadliest weapon of World War I. And the reason is because of the trench system that's going to trap the soldiers, and they're going to try and cross no man's land, and then they're going to get hit by machine guns. Okay, poisonous gas. This is going to include mustard gas and other chlorine. It's going to blind and choke and burn the enemy soldiers, and it's going to force armies to develop protection, and so you're going to have the gas mask. Now, gas isn't used as much as you would think because you had to consider all the different elements as whether or not to use gas, because if the wind was going the wrong way or you misjudged, you could, have the gas come back on you. You're going to have tanks. They're going to appear for the first time on the battlefield. Their whole strategy of use is going to be for the trenches and to go over barbed wire. But they're not going to be very reliable at the beginning. Airplanes at this time, they're used for scouting. They did not have bombs or machine guns or anything at the time. What's going to happen is the pilots are going to strap their guns onto the planes to eventually be involved with dogfights and such. At the sea, you have Germany relying on what's called U-boats. These are submarines with torpedoes. So in the last slide, we were talking about the U-boats. The U-boats are going to be very, very important. They're submarines, so remember U-boats and submarines. Okay, like I was telling you, the different weapons are going to cause such damage to the human body that we're going to see a lot of rapid advancements in medical technology. So as doctors are trying to struggle with these new injuries that are being created, they're going to create some prosthetics. And you've seen some of these before, the like kids' toys of the black glasses and a mustache. Well, those glasses and the mustache are actually holding on that face, as you see in that middle picture. So the poison gas is going to damage the lungs, the eyes, the skin, and like I said, we're going to develop gas mask. You're going to have goggles designed to protect the face. You're going to have these new prosthetics come out in reconstructive surgery. You're going to see a lot of injuries from machine guns. They're going to have to repair a lot of different facial characteristics that they normally didn't have to do before. So you're going to see missing jaws, cheeks, noses, and this is where they really advance in medical technology as to how to reconstruct a lot of these soldiers' faces. And this is where the foundation of how we get into reconstructive procedures today. Other wars that the United States has fought in has had mobility. So World War I becomes a conflict where we're going to lack mobility, and that's going to be through the trench system. So in 1940, at the Battle of Marne, German forces were stopped just outside Paris. Neither side is able to break through because for protection, armies start to dig in. So they create this long fortified defensive line, which is going to be a trench. This moment is going to mark the end of mobility in this war and the beginning of what's going to be called a stalemate, a trench stalemate. Stalemate meaning neither side wins. So they dig in, they start to create this trench system, which is massive, and the trenches are going to offer them protection from these new deadly weapons, these machine guns. But they create these trenches on either side facing each other. This land in between is going to be called no man's land. They can't get out of the trenches. As soon as one of the armies goes to try and get out of the trenches, go across no man's land to attack the other trench, they're going to be killed with machine guns. Okay, so that's how it is with the trenches facing each other. But in length, these trenches are running more than 400 miles. They run from the North Sea to the Swiss border. And then the trench system, you'll have the front of the trench facing no man's land and your enemy. And then backing up, it's just a massive system. But the trenches are what's holding the line. So commanders believe that the trenches would only be a temporary measure, a way to hold their territory, reduce casualties, and protect. But the trench system is what actually defines the entire war because neither side can move. So life inside these trenches was harsh and unforgiving. The system, like I said, was very complex. You had your front line trench, that's the one right there with machine guns, right on no man's land, looking at the enemy trench. Then you had all the trenches in the back, okay, from the front line going backwards. They are connected by all these communication lines. So they provide a lot of safety from enemy fire, these back trenches, but they also expose the soldiers. They're living in a ditch, okay? So they're dealing with misery, thick mud, shallow boots, rats, outbreak of disease, stress, bombardment from the constant artillery bombarding them. So day after day, these soldiers are living in these horribly cramped, wet conditions, just, waiting for their orders and hoping to survive another round of shelling. So the trench system created a deadlock that neither side could break for years. And this is what the Western Front becomes. So inside the land in between the trenches was called no man's land. It was just an area of ground that had, huge artillery craters from the shells, trees destroyed, just not a very nice area. And there's actually one Christmas Eve one Christmas, well, a Christmas Eve, one set of trenches started singing Silent Night, and the other trenches started singing Silent Night, and they actually come out to no man's land during Christmas Eve singing to each other, and they spend some time visiting both sides, and then they head back into their trenches and begin fighting again. All right, so we know that when World War I begins, the United States is not fighting. President Wilson is our president, and he insists on neutrality. They're isolationists. They don't want to deal with anything going on in the Eastern Hemisphere. So while the Americans are not sending troops, they are sending different supplies of food and weapons and militaries to their allies. So as the war expands, more nations join the Allied side, including Belgium, Italy switches sides, Romania, Greece, and Portugal. So Germany and its partners relied heavily on submarine warfare to strike back, and German submarines are called U-boats. So the German U-boats begin attacking any ships that come into the Atlantic. And in 1950, they sank the British passenger liner called Lusitania. So Lusitania is actually a sister ship to the Titanic. The same company built both ships. The Titanic, if you remember, was not supposed to be sinkable, and it sunk. The Lusitania was built with the illusion that it could outrun any torpedo. So it was not a ship that was supposed to be able to be torpedoed. Okay, so Lusitania has Americans on board, and it's considered a passenger line, so it's not considered a military ship. It's considered like a cruise ship, not as fancy, but it's a passenger line. So U-boats begin attacking, and in 1950 they sink Lusitania. Germany shoots a torpedo and sinks Lusitania. So U.S. had more than 100 Americans on board. So this is going to make the U.S. very, very mad. You killed Americans, now we're upset. So the U.S. warns Germany to stop attacking passenger vessels. And Germany responds with a cease pledge saying, okay, we're not going to sink any merchant ships without warning. So what this means is that Germany has to warn the ship that they're about to be torpedoed. So 1917, Germany is starving under the British naval block because the British are blocking ships coming in to Germany. And Germany begins what's called unrestricted submarine warfare. Okay, that's very important. Unrestricted submarine warfare. Remember, their submarines are called U-boats. What that means is we're going to sink any ship we want, even neutral ones. And we are not going to tell you, we're not going to warn you beforehand and let you know, hey, we're about to torpedo you. This is going to be a violation of freedom of the seas. This is the idea that neutral nations have the right to trade without being attacked. So neutral nations who are not involved in the war, their ships should be able to go back and forth across these war zones and not be attacked. The unrestricted submarine warfare is that Germany's just supposed to warn the ship before they attack them. So that leads to another issue with the U.S. being upset. Then the final spark comes in what's called the Zimmermann telegram. Zimmermann is a German official, and he sends a telegram to Mexico and lets Mexico know, because Germany does not want the United States coming into the war. Germany sends a message to Mexico and says, hey, Mexico, if you will attack the U.S., once we win, we will give you all of the territory that the U.S. took from you. Well, that message gets intercepted, and the American public are outraged. They're furious. So you have Germany submarines sinking ships, risking American lives, and then you have the threat of being attacked by Mexico. So Wilson asks Congress, because you're supposed to go to Congress to declare war. They asked Congress to declare war, and in April 1917, the United States enters World War I. Now, Russia is going through a revolution, and as the United States enters, Russia is going to withdraw. So this is going to begin a very distant conflict, and it's going to become a very direct challenge to America's rights, their security, and the principles they believe in. And the nation no longer can stay on the sidelines. So the U.S. is dragged into Europe and into the war. Now, Europe, remember, had already been fighting. So when America gets there, they're coming with fresh troops, fresh economics, fresh supplies, and they're going to come and really help the Allied powers. The U.S. had loaned enormous sums of money to Britain and France. American factories are creating and supplying the war. And then you have Germany threatening all of this with their unrestricted warfare. So Wilson's pushes the nations into the war in 1917. 1917, like I said, the soldiers are already fighting, the country's already over there fighting, the Allied system. They are worn down. They've been fighting a brutal war for several years. Morale is low. So when the U.S. comes in, it's just a spark of new power, and it completely changes the direction of the war. You have fresh troops, new resources, and whole new renewed energy. So we're not in the war long. So American soldiers and supplies, they tip the balance, right, of power, and they break the stalemates and they push through and are seen as just the shining army that won the war. So when the United States enters the war and their war effort and the change it made in the Allied system, the United States rises to being a global leader, a global power. It has huge military success, economic influence, and it demonstrates that they are no longer just a regional power. They are the power on the world stage. All right, some important people to remember are going to be General John Pershing. He was called Blackjack. He changes the way that battles are fought, and he establishes what's called the American Expeditionary Force. It's a way of training the soldiers, the AEF. It's a way of training the soldiers, disciplining them, strategic ways of movements, military movements, and this training is going to influence military leaders to come. You have Patton. He is going to serve underneath Pershing in the AEF. He is going to change the way tank warfare tactics were done, and he's going to be a huge military leader. And then in World War II, he's going to be a world war hero. MacArthur, he is with the Navy, with the ocean. He is going to be in World War I, just he's going to have innovative ways and military strategies, but remember he's in the water. He is going to become a huge military leader, and he's also in World War II going to be a hero of the war and a major player. Okay, so then we have Alvin York, and Alvin York is going to be World War I. He's going to be this humble soldier. He's from Tennessee. He's going to become one of America's greatest war heroes. So he is in the AEF, and this is during the Aragon Forest Offense. So what happens is York finds himself and a small group of men trapped behind enemy lines. The forest is very, very dense, and it's in Germany. And when German machine gun fire is going to pin down his whole unit, York charges, and using his sharpshooting skills, he silences all the machine guns. He kills the men in the machine gun nest, and he captures 132 German soldiers pretty much by himself. So his bravery is going to stun both sides. And he, of course, back home is going to make the headlines as the symbol of courage, determination, and the symbol of the American spirit. So he is one that needs to be remembered. Okay, so one of the major battles is in the Aragon Forest. I'm sorry, I told you it was in Germany. It's not in Germany, it's in France. I don't know what I was thinking. So it's in the northeast corner of France. So Germany had transformed this region into an area that couldn't be penetrated. So it laid barbed wire, landmines, concrete defenses, machine gun nest, and was this place that should be stoppable for anyone who tried to attack. So in 1918, Pershing and his AEF, they launch a massive offense leading more than 600,000 soldiers of the AEF into what will become one of the largest and most important battles that was fought in World War I. So the fighting is brutal and slow. Soldiers pushing through this thick forest, deep ravines, and just under constant German firing from the machine guns. But against all the odds, they broke through the German line. So the success in the Aragon offense, it just shatters Germany's final defense, and it helps bring the war to an end. So this proves the United States their military power, and it shows it on a world stage. All right, back home at the home front. So you have the entire nation had to adjust almost overnight to life on the home front with their soldiers gone, and just a very dramatic change. So while millions of men are leaving their jobs to serve in the military, nearly 2 million are heading to Europe. So women and African Americans are going to step into the roles that had long been closed to them, right? They have to fill these jobs that the men were doing. So women are going to begin working in the factories, offices, shipyards. This is going to help prove their capability, and it's also going to strengthen the suffrage movement, which is the movement for women to gain the right to vote, the 19th Amendment. So African Americans, they also are barred from fighting. You have some forces out there under the French command, but for the most part, you still have discrimination faced at home. So you have several things going on. You have women replacing men in the workplace and doing a man's job. You have propaganda that is going to help the American home front support the war. Then you have the financing issue of the war. The war is becoming very expensive. So the government needs to raise about 30 billion. And what they're going to do is they're going to sell war bonds. So they're going to use propaganda to help sell these war bonds. They're going to do films, they're going to do speeches, they're going to talk around the country. They need Americans to buy war bonds, and these war bonds will help raise the money for the war. So you also have Americans need to conserve food. If they conserve food, then that food can be sent to the soldiers overseas. So this is called total war, because the entire nation is involved in the war, whether it's women replacing the men and doing jobs, whether it's women who are making bullets and artillery. if it's women and families who are buying war bonds, who are reducing the food they eat so that food can then be sent to the soldiers. At the same time, the government passed some acts. One is the Espionage Act of 1917. The Espionage Act of 1917 makes it illegal to criticize the war effort. And this is going to lead to a mass arrest of more than 6,000 Americans. So you can't say anything bad about the war. Then you have the Selective Service Act of 1917. This gives the federal government the authority to draft any man into the military. So you have 2.8 million men drafted into the military, and it was a universal male registration. You still register for it if you're a young male, once you're a young male. And then you have at the same time what's called the Great Migration. So you still have the southern states who African Americans are facing a lot of discrimination. So they're going to move over several years, not just during the war, but they're going to move from the rural South up to the northern cities. If you remember back with your Civil War, the North has the industrialization and the South has the raw materials. It's more of an agriculture area. So you're going to have what's called the Great Migration. Eventually, between 1916 and 1970, you have over 6 million African Americans relocate between that time period. Okay, at the end of the war in 1918, you have what's going to be known as Wilson's 14 points. So Wilson has this vision for how the world should rebuild once the fighting is over, and it's known as the 14 points. It's meant to tackle the root causes of the war and prevent anything like that ever happening again. So Wilson calls for open diplomacy, no more secret treaties, no more alliance systems, freedom of the seas, all nations could travel and trade safely, and free trade. And this is to remove any economic barriers that would fuel conflict. So he urged countries to reduce their weapons to the lowest level needed for safety and championed the idea of self-determination, arguing that people should have the right to form their own governments rather than be ruled by empires. And at the heart of this whole plan is the creation of the League of Nations. This is going to be an international organization designed to settle any type of disputes peacefully to maintain global stability, which is great. So every other nation joins except for the United States. So Wilson is hoping that all these different things will create lasting peace. January of 1919, is when we're going to have the Treaty of Versailles, which is not going to be the first treaty. We have several treaties of Versailles. So January 19th, all the world leaders gather in Paris, and they're going to shape the peaceful transfer, the end of the World War. So it's called the Paris Peace Conference, January 18th. And you have what's called the Big Four. So these are the big countries. You have President Wilson of the United States, Clemenceau of France, George of Britain, and Orlando of Italy. So Wilson arrives. He's determined to promote his plan, the 14 points. He wants to build a fair and lasting peace. You have all of the leaders want to punish Germany. Okay, Germany's going to take all of the heat. Everybody's mad at Germany. Although if you remember, Serbia started it. So all the leaders are mad at Germany, and they want to also protect their national interest. So they're going to spend months debating and compromising and then coming up with the final Treaty of Versailles. So there's a few things that they're going to punish Germany with. And this is important because these punishments are going to lead straight to World War II when Hitler violates and breaks the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, so one of the things is that Germany's responsible. And under that, they have to pay massive reparation to the other countries that they destroyed. This is money. Well, Germany's destroyed too. So, their whole country's in disarray. So they want Germany to pay massive amounts of money and surrender territory to the other countries, mainly France. The other big thing that Germany is supposed to do is they have to accept what's called the guilt clause, which means that they are saying that they are completely responsible for the war. Okay, this last slide just shows you a little timeline of the war. But the Treaty of Versailles, the reparations, the amount of money that Germany has to pay is not something that they can come close to paying. And then the war guilt clause, saying that they have to accept full responsibility for the war, those are going to lead straight to World War II.